Hey everyone, welcome to Daily Revelations. So we are going through the book of Isaiah right now, and yesterday I summarized kind of in 6 points for you, chapters 1 through 5. And so we're going through chapters 6 through 10 today, and the big thing that God really pointed out to me as I was reading through these was that we can do things that will protect ourselves. Our society chooses to do things that creates waves in this world, and waves that make us have to ride them because of the way God's nature works against sin. And in whatever time period we live in an era of sin until God comes again, Jesus comes again, and perfects all that. We have these waves of life that are going to be part of our culture. Yet, we don't have to be overwhelmed by the waves. We can ride them gracefully, and God shows us how to do that. And that's a lot of what he's trying to tell through Isaiah to the people of Israel. Something's coming. You can ride this out well. You can handle this with grace. You have something I've given you to equip you to make it through this. And those who choose that will prevail. Unfortunately, not many listened. And unfortunately today, not many listen still. So what is it? Well, let's go through that. So, Isaiah 6 is probably a chapter, if you don't know it by its reference, you know it by the story. So, Isaiah encounters God. He's like, oh, I should not have seen that. I should not even have been in the presence of God. Who am I? I should be smitten. I should just be wiped out, is basically what he says. And yet, God's grace comes on him, and he says, you recognized me. You saw me. You repented before me. You said, what a sinner I am. I've got an assignment for you. I want to call you and use you. Yet everyone else during this time period is completely oblivious to God's movement around them, to listening to God, to seeing what he's doing. They're so caught up in everything. And it has to do with what these two different peoples put their trust in. Isaiah had been trusting in God. He had been looking for God. He had been trying to find God. And everything that he did centered on what and who God was. And that is what he based his life on. He trusted first in what God said. Everyone else trusted in the world. And so they had blinders on, they had mufflers over their ears, and they were like, going like this, la, 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 la. I don't hear you. I'm stuck in this, and this is what I'm focusing on, is the circumstances. And Isaiah chose to see beyond that. And that trust was what allowed him to see God. And so it was a pattern in his life. And just like we need to create a pattern in our life. Am I looking for God? Am I trusting in him in the small things? Because when the big things come, when the big waves come, I have to know how to ride the small ones first. And so I'm not overwhelmed, and I can gracefully glide on the top. Ahaz in chapter 7 was king then. Ahaz was not a good guy. But at the end of his life, he did come to this understanding that he was not one in charge. God was. But Isaiah came to Ahaz and said, God has something to tell you. You can trust him. You don't have to worry about these kings attacking you. He's got this worked out. And to guarantee this, tell me a sign that you want to get from God so that you will know that you can trust him. And he says, I don't need a sign. Go away. Whether he trusted in God or not, we don't know. But God decided to give him a sign anyways. His sign was this prophecy, the prophecy that we know well and we quote well at Christmas time. Behold, a virgin will be with child. And it goes on with that verse talking about the coming King, Jesus. And yet God knew that this was going to be something that came way after, but it still was a sign for people that would listen. Well, some who would listen. Even in that time, not many did or understood what this sign was. So then in Isaiah 8, God said a darkness is coming. This is imminent. This wave is going to be huge. Where are you putting your trust? And he lays it out. If you put your trust in the world, this is what is going to happen to you. You stumble, you'll be broken, you'll be shattered, you'll be thwarted, you'll be knocked down, snared, and caught. Yuck. But if you trust in God, he will take on your fear. He will cover all your dread, and he will be your sanctuary. It doesn't say he's going to remove them from this terrible darkness that's coming, but he will be a covering and a protection, something that would allow them to go through this difficult time with grace. And so often God does this for us. He does things that allow us to draw closer to him, to lean on him, and to graciously go through things that are really awful in our lives. He does not remove the darkness because that time has not come yet. But he does allow us to draw on him. In Isaiah 9, again, there's another prophecy about Jesus. And the people in darkness will see a great light. Again, we quote this at Christmas. For a child will be born unto us, a son will be given. This is where these verses are from. And yet, they're promises way out. They were hope to instill in these people who are going to go through a difficult time. What hope do we cling to? Do we cling to God's promises? Or do we say, my circumstance is so bad, God has definitely abandoned me? Can we trust in him? And then when we trust in him, we can ride those waves out. And finally, in chapter 10, God says, there'll be a remnant left. This darkness is coming to weed out those who aren't trusting me. Can we make it through? The only way we can make it through is if we trust in God. And that remnant that's left, which he referred to in chapter 6 as a stump. Everything cut down, the land around it desolate, the stump left. And yet, when we talk about chapter 11, we'll talk about a shoot that comes out of that stump. Something that comes out of that remnant that was left, that God is going to create something even greater through. Can we be part of that remnant? And he says, those that will be left are those that relied on me. I want to be counted in that, definitely. And so what does it all boil down to? To ride out life graciously, we trust. We trust that God has something worked out. Whether we see darkness around us or light, he is working out something better. And we just trust in that and make it through each day. So I just encourage you, press on, ride those waves and trust. And it will send you to the place that you need to go because God is very good at that. So thanks for joining me on Daily Revelations today. I'll see you again tomorrow as we dive into the next 5 chapters of Isaiah. Have an awesome day. Bye, everybody.